Hello and a very good morning. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi. Joining me here in the studio is my colleague Nancy Bora, and what we're essentially up to every day at 8 a.m. is to take a look at the overnight developments, take a look at some of the top headlines across all newspapers, Hindi, English, regional newspapers from down south. And that's not all. We'll also take a look at what the social media is abuzz with. If there's a meme that's going viral, well, we'll talk about it. And if there's a video that's going viral, we'll try and throw it up on the big wall over there. Albeit most videos that go viral these days can't be, thrown right there on the big wall in the public domain like that. But when we're trying to bring you, a news essence of the day, for you to be on top of the news pulse, well then how about you meet us halfway as well? When we're trying to break these newsroom barriers, these rigid structures, meet us halfway, get down in the comment sections, tell us what is it that you'd like us to do and present for you. We'll try to bring you balanced, nuanced perspectives, debates, discussions, discourses, whatever the topic demands. But because there is a time frame that we have to adhere to. There is a list that we have sort of, jotted down that Nancy and I are going to talk about. If you think there's something that we've missed out here, if you think that's something that is of grave significance, get down in the comment sections, and our handles are mentioned, and you can also tweet to us, text us, X us, on various social media platforms as well. All right, let's get started. Right on the top, we've got, of course, the G20 Summit that is concluded. Milestone Summit wouldn't have been possible without the Modi magic and Modi ka jadoo and Modi's leadership. Prime Minister Modi has also taken a firm stand against Khalistani extremism in Canada with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. That's something that we'll touch, throw some light on. Mohammed bin Salman, he's continuing to stay here. He's here for another day, and he's going to meet the Prime Minister. There's an official state visit also on the cards. That's something that we'll talk about as well. Also, ladies and gentlemen, on that particular list, we've got a former Andhra Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu that, Nancy has been studying for the longest time now. So, Chandrababu Naidu, he's been shifted to a particular jail. Yesterday, some visuals of him, yes, with that cordoning human chain inside which Chandrababu Naidu was standing. I mean, but everybody is only talking about how Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy and Chandrababu Naidu, I mean, if in fact he did pull that off. Well, also, 7 people have died, and these are 7 workers who died in Thane lift as that lift came crashing down about 40 floors at a Thane skyscraper. That is something that we'll also throw some light on. And whilst we're talking about Maharashtra, let's also just mention the Maharashtra quota stir. Thane mein band ki aaj maang ki gayi hai, and on the other hand, Eknath Shinde, Devendra Fadnavis and Ajit Pawar, they've called an all-party meet on the same. When we're looking at some sports news, Djokovic, of course, beat Medvedev and won the U.S. Open. It's his 24th Grand Slam title. 24th! My goodness, a league of his own. And of course, Rubiales, the Spanish Football Association head, the Spanish soccer chief. Yes. Well, he has stepped down after that entire kissing scandal, completely tarnished the Women World Cup winning team from Spain's victory, who beat the English Lionesses. And it's not easy to beat the England's women team. So beating them at the finals. All of that we're going to quickly talk about. But first and foremost, let me just take a quick look at the top headlines. And you also tell us what are some of the top headlines telling us in terms of the G20 Summit's closure. It says, at G20 close, Modi's message to the United Nations. He says, new global structure for new realities. I mean, there is so much new, right? We were already talking about how there is so much that has happened for the first time under Prime Minister Modi. For the first time, African Union is on the table. For the first time, we're talking about a biofuels alliance. For the first time, we're going to possibly be looking at a One Future alliance. For the first time, there is possibly going to be an international public digital infrastructure. And now he's made, calls for a new global structure for new realities. This is his message to the United Nations. Seeks expansion of the United Nations Security Council. Cites, African Union's entry in the G20 as an example. कि बॉस जब ये हम कर सकते हैं, आप हमें UNSC पे सीट क्यों नहीं दे सकते?
And exactly that is the approach that we are talking about, that India took in this G20 summit. We went ahead for it. We are like, we deserve it. And the way we pitched the issues, as you were saying, that this is that is why we are calling it a milestone G20 summit, because we have achieved so much through this. Because I was listening to the press conference held by Emmanuel Macron, or the foreign minister of Russia, and the way they are talking about India, and the way they are saying that for Russia the summit was a breakthrough. And the India checked with the West, and that is what we are talking about. All the global leaders are praising India. Nobody is, they don't have any complaints. They are like, this is the new India that we were talking about. This is the, India that we want. And I think the breakthrough came essentially because of the way India handled, the declaration regarding the Russia-Ukraine war, because it created a bridge between, the G20 was divided into complete two sides. India came in as the negotiator, and it completed that bridge. It created that bridge between two different ideologies, which seemed to be impossible. But I think we have to give it to India that the way they handled the whole G20 summit, the way we organized it, is just not the political issues or the geopolitical issues or the economic issues that we talked about, but the hospitality that India had to offer was something amazing.
Absolutely. Prime Minister calls for virtual G20 in November before India's term ends. Even as the G20 summit was being concluded, the Prime Minister says that, friends, abhi hamari presidency ke 2.5 mahine baki hain. 2.5 months में और बहुत सारा काम करना है. And before the presidency is completely over, he's called in for a virtual G20 meet in November this very year, before it is finally officially handed over and goes on to Brazil. And he's called on all the leaders to attend that G20 summit. Seems like that hangover of the G20 summit, that's not going away. And these powerful selfies that we saw across from that dinner and yesterday, that somber note at Rajghat, only goes on to show that people also, the global leaders also, don't want India's presidency to get over.
Because I think that is what I'm saying. The world leaders, they were enjoying the G20 summit so much. You can see the pictures from the selfie that I was talking about with Australian PM. This is what we are talking about. This is what India is, that nobody can be a leader. Everybody, felt secure, felt, included in under G20 presidency, whether it was African Union, whether it was West. We listened to everybody, we came, but still the independent stand that India took was something commendable. The way India concluded the G20 summit, the way we came up with the declaration, and now that we are pitching for India's UN membership, I think there is no argument left for why I don't understand what argument will be given to us that you can't be a member of any international body at this point.
The Times of India here says, power, pyar and prayer. From Raj Kapoor to Rishi, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy visited Akshardham temple on Sunday morning, and we all saw those visuals. We all saw the heavy police deployment for UK Prime Minister. And you've been saying it for the longest time that he seemed to be the most excited to come to India out of all the global leaders. He says spending 50 minutes at the Akshardham temple offering prayers and interacting with priests. On Friday, Sunak had said, I'm a proud Hindu. Hopefully I can visit a mandir while I'm here. Meanwhile, the UK on Sunday pledged $2 billion, its biggest contribution yet, to the Green Climate Fund. And that video that was doing the rounds, where Rishi Sunak begins and there's a voiceover, it says, well, why have I come to India? He says, well, simply because global issues matter.
True.
And that's the kind of investment that he's done, $2 billion, its biggest contribution yet, the UK, to the Green Climate Fund.
And the way he took stand on the Khalistan issue as well, because he has been so clear-cut and he's been so straightforward, that I have to talk about. Earlier he said that, the free trade agreement might not be possible. There is no confirmation yet. But after the bilaterals, he was confirmed that, we want to have, a good trade relation with our country. And I think it was with every global leader, not just Rishi Sunak. Everybody was so, fond of India. And after the conclusion as well, everybody is praising India, that, this presidency was so enlightening, so inclusive. And that is what, for France, the G20 confirms isolation of Russia and condemns war. So Emmanuel Macron, in his presser, he talked about Russia-Ukraine war, but everybody is also, very clear about the fact that India has an independent approach to it. India is going to take that independent approach.
And there's no problem with it because
And
India
there's no
can take
problem
that
with it.
independent stand.
I think the way India made it clear that we have ties, we have independent coalition with each and every country. We respect that coalition, and we want you to respect our boundaries. That India is not going to get influenced by international alliance and not take a stand for what it feels.
It says both Russia and Europe hail India's role in the declaration. No decision yet to quit the BRI, says Italy. However, the Belt and Road Initiative, that Italy is saying no decision yet to quit it, but of course it is on board the economic corridor that we're moving in the Middle East with the help of Europe and US and well, of course the European Union as well. East meets West, a real nice picture of UK PM Rishi Sunak, who had a chat with Bangladesh counterpart Sheikh Hasina, and Sheikh Hasina is sitting on the chair and Rishi Sunak is on his knees talking to Sheikh Hasina. But what you were talking about, how consensus was reached upon this Ukraine-Russia issue, because Russia says right here on the front page, there's a quote of Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister. He says, it was a breakthrough summit. I want to thank India for creating a foundation for democratization of global tensions. On the other hand, Emmanuel Macron, that you also quoted, an overwhelming majority of G20 countries condemns war in Ukraine. The G20 has again confirmed isolation of Russia. Now, here it says, both Russia and Europe hail India's role in the declaration.
And it's just not Russia and France, it's also Japan. Japan is also keen to deepen defense ties with India, says the Prime Minister of Japan. He said that refers to the harsh security environment in the region and says that the country is opposed to unilateral changes to the status quo in East and South China Seas. It defends the Delhi Declaration as a meaningful achievement. So even Japan is saying that it's a meaningful achievement, that it is a big deal that India came out with the declaration, and Japan respects that if they don't want to, even Japan has very economical ties with China. They have their bilateral relations with China, and they're saying that we don't want to. Even we understand that because of war between two alliances doesn't have to, divide the world into two. We can have our relations with any country that we want, and we can still pitch for something, that is morally correct, or that, that will benefit people at large. So that is something that was interesting, that everybody is praising India so much. Nobody has said anything about, the G20. Everybody agreed, 100% consensus on the Delhi Declaration was an achievement on its own.
Ursula von der Leyen, in the final session called One Future, she spoke about the importance of regulating artificial intelligence. It says here, no big crypto call for now, but India to continue talks on regulating crypto. And when they say that India is going to continue its talks, it's not just lip service, ladies and gentlemen. India has been doing its work, and we've seen it. The kind of, those 80 odd paragraphs in the declaration, Delhi Declaration. I mean, it says right here, day after New Delhi Declaration, world leaders walk in step at Rajghat, and India firms up ties as Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds key bilaterals. Modi and Macron want quick defense manufacturing roadmap as well. So defense ties with the US, defense ties with the UAE, defense ties with Japan, defense ties of course with Australia as well, and now defense ties with France. I mean, better defense ties with France. It's not like that's something new. On UNSC membership, Erdogan, the Turkish president, says world is bigger than the 5 countries. And that's when Prime Minister Modi comes in and gives him that example of BRICS, saying that look what we've done with BRICS very recently, look what we've done with G20. We've now have Africa Union out there on the high table. What's wrong with UNSC expanding the table?
Yes, that is what India is asking right now, that we have done everything.
And we're asking the right questions, because towing that line, following suit, there are several other nations.
Yes.
Now saying that, I mean, why are only you 5 sitting in the UNSC?
And India has made that argument for the permanent seat of UN as well, that, since it began, since its formation, the permanent seats have not changed yet. So I think, the way India was like, now it's not G20, it's G21. So India believes in inclusivity. So that is what they were going for, that the permanent seat has to be changed. We have proved ourselves.
Real nice wordplay over here. Nancy, check this out. It says Rishi and Akshata at House of Lords like Commons. House of Lords
Like Commons.
House of Lords and House of Commons take over there. Modi Biden nod to joint $1 billion fund for renewable energy infrastructure in India. So this is a Modi Biden collective nod. But more interestingly, what I was actually trying to tell the viewers was that apart from all this Delhi declaration and the G20 summit, fashion had its own course to take. It says sari kurta band gala. People make their own Delhi declaration. Sartorial statement. From left to right, the pictures of President Draupadi Murmu and Kobita Jagnot. Then you also have Kristalina Georgieva, the MD of International Monetary Fund. And then you have, of course, Sheikh Hasina. You also have Ritu Banga, several other people. Giorgia Meloni also, donned upon some Indian attire at this particular venue. Take a look at that. So many leaders. That's Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's wife in a sari.
And that is what I was talking about, that, the dinner party that hosted by the president of Bharat, the way everybody came and, dressed up in proper attires and everybody clicking selfies, it was nice to see the, top leaders, who are leading developed nations in such a candid, in such candor that, they're taking selfies, they're having the time of their life, they're just enjoying the party. And I think that is only possible under India's hospitality, because the way we make people feel comfortable, the way we talked about everything, yet, so that everybody feels that, you are an important guest for today and for this summit.
And you know what? Another important aspect, and I'm just going to request the control room, if they have the Canadian Prime Minister's visuals, to try and throw them on air, because it says right here that Khalistan extremism won't help ties. This is Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister. It says India-Canada ties threaten to go into free fall because of the growing divergence between the two sides over the unchecked Khalistani extremism in the North American country. This was evident on Sunday when Prime Minister Narendra Modi told his Canadian counterpart Justin Trudeau that there could not be progress in India-Canada ties without trust and mutual respect. However, while Modi sought cooperation from Trudeau in reining in the pro-Khalistani elements, the Canadian Prime Minister later told the media that his country would always defend freedom of expression, freedom of conscience and freedom of peaceful protest while acting against hatred, and that he raised the issue of foreign interference with the Prime Minister. What do you have over there, Nancy, on this particular end? Because even as we learned about the snag delays in Justin Trudeau's aircraft, which is why he could not leave yesterday, there seems to be another sort of a tussle between India and Canada.
And that is what I was saying earlier as well. The way Rishi Sunak spoke about Khalistan and the way Justin Trudeau is speaking about Khalistan, you can see the difference already, The diplomacy there, they don't want to take a strong stand over it. They don't want to talk about it like, that we are going to stop it. They are not condemned. There is not clear condemnation of the Khalistani movement in Canada. But with Rishi Sunak, he was so clear. He was like, this kind of extremism is not going to be tolerated in my country. And the way he's speaking about it, to quote him, he said that, Canada will always defend freedom of expression, freedom of conscience and freedom of peaceful protest. And it is extremely important to us. So they're saying that, they still think that, Khalistan protest, comes under the freedom of expression. So they don't have right to stop it right now, but he's saying that at the same time we are always there to prevent violence and to push back against hatred. The flip side of it is we also highlighted the importance of respecting the rule of law, and we did talk about foreign interference. So that is what I'm talking about, the foreign interference, in this Khalistani angle is that, Canada is not independently handling the situation. Everybody is talking about it, and India has continuously, repeatedly have said this, that this is not acceptable, the way things happen at the...
What do you think? What do you think? The way the Canada Prime Minister is dealing with it and where the United Kingdom Prime Minister is dealing with it. Because Rishi Sunak said that, let me tell you that this is a great year for India, and I unequivocally stand against any kind of extremism, not just Khalistani extremism, any kind of extremism. That is something that Rishi Sunak says, without saying that, freedom of expression has to be maintained. And of course, Justin Trudeau, on the other hand, has to be really diplomatic, because he has to make sure that the interest of his people who actually have elected him, they are also, not curtailed. So what do you think, whose stand is more harsher, UK PMs on Khalistani extremism, or is it the Canadian PMs?
Definitely it's going to be, Rishi Sunak, because the way he's talking about the issue, the way he's, addressing the issue right now, I think Canada, the stand of Canada is still yet very diplomatic. They are still trying to protect the, freedom of expression, which is fair enough on their side, but, to have that strategic to strengthen the ties with India. I think, Justin Trudeau really needs to come up and just talk about the issue, that this is not acceptable. This is hampering our nation's, image right now. And this is going to deepen the issues, not just within India, but with India and Canada's relationship as well. Because a country's PM is supposed to take care of these issues because, if I remember correctly, in Canada, there was also a kind of a road show, sorry, depicting Indira Gandhi's assassination. There was this whole depiction of, what happened.
Right, we all remember that. We all saw that because there was a huge bogey as part of a parade. I remember that, yeah.
And that parade happened, and there was not, he came out 2 days later and then he clarified, I apologize.
A very callous remark, basically.
Yes, the casual approach toward this is not acceptable. And I think this is what the new India we are talking about, that, PM Modi went and he warned him against it, that, this is not acceptable.
And that's exactly why the Prime Minister has again raked up the Khalistan issue with the Canadian Prime Minister, saying that, look, even as the entire world is talking about India and their relationship, and vice versa, India-Canada ties will not, go beyond, mere, geopolitical diplomatic ties, until and unless you figure out and solve out this Khalistan issue. Just saying that freedom of expression can't be curtailed is not the right way of dealing with it, certainly with the kind of killings that are taking place as well on both sides. All right, it seems we've spoken about the G20 Summit. Two more aspects about the G20 Summit and then we'll quickly move on. One is, of course, of the growing bonhomie. I'm reading here, it says Africa has enough room for India as well, says a Africa Union chairperson. So whilst we're making room for them and all the other G20 nations, let's not solely take the credit. It's just that it happened under India's presidency. Well, what can I say?
No, it was Modi ka magic.
It was Modi ka magic, of course. Strong leadership of the oldest democracy. On the other hand, how did we reach consensus on that document? 100% consensus in advance, even before the summit got over. The fantastic four who helped build G20 consensus. Various dailies, it's not one particular newspaper. Today, the Times of India have covered it in their newspaper. Yesterday, it was on somebody else's, and various, e-websites has already taken up. The four people who actually helped build consensus, take a look at this. Abhay Thakur, Additional Secretary, G20 Secretariat. Thakur is an engineer turned diplomat and joined the IFS in 1992. Nagaraj Naidu, Kakanur, Joint Secretary, G20 Secretariat. You have Enam Gambhir, Joint Secretary, G20 Secretariat, and you have Ashish Kumar Sinha, who's the Joint Secretary, G20 Secretariat. 4 Indian Foreign Service officers who worked with the country's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant were key to India securing a consensus at the G20 Leaders Summit after hours of tough negotiations. And you know what they say? They say that the Sherpas are the ones who actually do all the dirty work and the work, behind the scenes, and the world leaders just come, sign on the paper, it's a photo up, but it's the G20 Sherpas that, actually toil the hardest. Amitabh Kant put up a photograph yesterday of G20 Sherpas of all the developing nations only, not the developed nations. And he said, these are the people why G20 was a success. These are the people who've been giving me sleepless nights. And these are the people because of which we today have 100% consensus.
And that is what I'm talking about, that, the way India was so, creating the bridge between developed nations and developing countries. It's so important because the fact that you shared that he only shared the picture of developing countries is because the issue that with the Russia-Ukraine issue that we're talking about, and people who have the countries who had a strong stand over it were the developed countries, not the developing nations. So when they were talking about, when they were coming to the declaration, I think it was the developing nations who came in as negotiator, who came in as bridge, that what, boss, because of this fight, because of this Ukraine-Russia conflict that has been going on for such a long time, we are the ones suffering, we are the ones who are deprived of resources, we are the ones who, whose economy is taking a, a hit. So it's time for you to understand that this is not about you guys, this is about us, that because of this issue, we are lagging behind and you are asking us to take a stand over it. So I think it's important that India, gave that platform to the developing countries, to the African Union, that, this is your place. You should have a say in it. Have a say in it.
Not even your. This is our place. And these visuals, they say the exact same thing. Joko Widodo, giving a sapling to the Prime Minister, and then it was the Brazilian president, Inácio Lula da Silva, who gave the sapling to the Prime Minister, and after which the gavel exchange ceremony happened. But before we move on and change segments, talk about what's happening back at home as well, and of course what happened with Joe Biden when he visited Vietnam right before this session. Let's listen into the Prime Minister, his closing speech, and how he called upon all the leaders to attend the virtual summit of G20 in November later on this year.
Excellencies, जैसा आप सब जानते हैं, भारत के पास नवंबर तक G20 प्रेसिडेंसी की भी जिम्मेदारी है। अभी 2.5 महीने बाकी हैं। इन 2 दिनों में आप सभी ने अनेक बातें यहां रखी हैं, सुझाव दिए हैं, बहुत सारे प्रस्ताव रखे हैं। हमारी ये जिम्मेदारी है कि जो सुझाव आए हैं उनको भी एक बार फिर देखा जाए कि उनकी प्रगति में गति कैसे लाई जा सकती है। मेरा प्रस्ताव है कि हम नवंबर के अंत में G20 का एक वर्चुअल सेशन और रखें। उस सेशन में हम इस समिट के दौरान तय विषयों की समीक्षा कर सकते हैं। इन सब की डिटेल्स हमारी टीम आप सभी के साथ शेयर करेगी। मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि आप सब इससे जुड़ेंगे। योर हाइनेसेस, एक्सेलेंसीज, इसी के साथ मैं G20 समिट के समापन की घोषणा करता हूं। वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर का रोड मैप सुखद हो। स्वस्ति अस्तु विश्वस्य, यानी संपूर्ण विश्व में आशा और शांति का संचार हो। 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की इसी मंगल कामना के साथ आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं ब्राजील के राष्ट्रपति और मेरे मित्र लुला डी सिल्वा को हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं देता हूं और मैं उनको प्रेसिडेंसी का गेवल सौंपता हूं।
Well, now that's how essentially the end, the conclusion of the G20 summit happened. But even as we were talking about, how the African Union is saying that there is room for India in Africa as well. They have also gone out and said that, India is a bigger superpower ahead of China. African Union's chief's reaction on the very same. Take a listen.
His Excellency Azali Osumani, President of Comoros and Chairperson of the African Union.
Well, all right, we'll play out that reaction in just a small bit. Meanwhile, let's shift our focus to President Joe Biden now. President Joe Biden, he visited Vietnam. He flew to Hanoi right after that little somber early morning session at Rajghat. He did not attend the final One Future session, but he had done his bilateral before that. Now it's interesting that, you know, some of the statements that he's made when he's visited Vietnam, when he visited Vietnam, how about we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the something that I need to highlight, that we were talking about earlier as well, that the way West and other developed countries understand India's stand, that, you know, why the declaration was, the language of the declaration was like that. Because, you know, here it says that Joe Biden at the press has said that it's not a wedge issue. He's talking about the Russia-Ukraine war, that it's not a wedge issue with the global south, it's a wedge issue with Russia, which is present, and with China, which is present. So he's clearly has said this, that, the way we get it, that global south doesn't agree with us on the Russia. We condemn the war. We want Russia to, withdraw their troops. But if the global south doesn't want it, it's not going to create a wedge between the West and the global south. We are going to look forward to the developing countries. We are going to have ties with them. And that is exactly what India wanted. That was the India's agenda at the G20 Summit, that we want to talk about the issues, but something that we want to have a relationship with you, we want to have trade relations with you, but this is not going to, be like, okay, we are going to get influenced by you. And I think Biden understood that, and West understood that, and the way he addressed it, because West has some issues with Russia and with China. At the Vietnam press conference, he talked about China as well. That I don't want to, take over Beijing. But if they don't understand, if they don't, try to be modest with us, this is not going to happen. So even while threatening China, even while talking about the Russia-Ukraine issue, he was asked a lot of times that what about the New Delhi Declaration, which was a lot different than what happened at Bali. So the way world leaders are defending the declaration says a lot about India, and says a lot about India's ties with the developed countries, especially U.S, Russia, and France. So I think that was something interesting to note, and something that I was really excited to see, that Biden defending India in that way.
One of the things that is going on now, and I'm quoting from what exactly Joe Biden said. He says one of the things that is going on now is China is beginning to change some of the rules of the game in terms of trade and other issues. I just want to make sure we have a relationship with China that is on the up and up, squared away. Essentially saying that, Biden has said that he does not want to contain China, but Beijing should follow rules. That final picture before, he left off for Vietnam, Hanoi, what he said over there. Let's quickly listen into the United States President.
I am sincere about getting the relationship right. And one of the things that is going on now is China is beginning to change some of the rules of the game in terms of trade and other issues. And so one of the things we talked about, for example, is that they're now talking about making sure that no Chinese, no one in the Chinese government can use a Western cell phone, those kinds of things. And so really what this trip was about, it was less about containing China. I don't want to contain China. I just want to make sure we have a relationship with China that is on the up and up, squared away. Everybody knows what it's all about.
Well, now even as we were talking about the Belt and Road Initiative and how Italy has said that there is no decision कि हम उससे निकल आए या नहीं निकल आए. Italy was part of the economic corridor, which the United States is also part of, and the Prime Minister kept thanking the U.S. President on that front as well. He mentioned the economic corridor in Vietnam as well. Listen into that reaction.
The G20 Summit. This was an important moment for the United States to demonstrate our global leadership and our commitment to solving the challenges that matter most to people around the world. Investing in inclusive growth and sustainable development, addressing the climate crisis, strengthening food security and education, advancing global health and health security. We showed up ready to work, and we showed the world the United States is a partner with a positive vision for our shared future. At the G20, we made progress on issues like multilateral development bank reform to get to those nations that are neither poor nor wealthy but we couldn't qualify before, debt relief, and increased infrastructure needs, not only in the global south but other parts of the world as well. We forged a groundbreaking new partnership that will connect India to Europe, with the Middle East and Israel, with transportation by rail and by shipment through and energy supplies and digital connections that are going to open up untold opportunities for transformative economic investment through that on that entire corridor.
Well, and people have appreciated and heaped praises, not just internationally, but back at home as well, across party lines, across the opposition. We earlier saw how Nitish Kumar made his way to that dinner as well. Several other opposition leaders who were invited. Not all of them, attended the dinner that Draupadi Murmu had hosted for the global leaders. But Shashi Tharoor is that one person who people go for a reaction or a bite, to. He gave out a reaction on the G20 Summit and the importance of the economic corridor. He praises as well. Let's listen in to the Congress stalwart as to what they had to say on the G20 Summit.
Yeah, this was a new development. I think while something like the admission of the African Union was expected, even telegraphed well before the summit, and whereas even some of the other agreed language on debt relief, on sustainable development and so on, all of that can be advertised as successful, but it doesn't really connect to any concrete outcome so far. It's just, capable, pious platitudes, one might say, which were well done, no problem with it. But at the same time, one could definitely argue that that alone does not give us enough to be celebrating. The India-Middle East EU initiative is completely new, not something that was anticipated earlier, and that has tremendous potential for the future, provided it is implemented properly. The worry about many international summits is very often that in our country, we've also seen this, that you have a summit, you focus on agreeing a declaration, and you get a triumphant result in terms of agreed language, but then implementation never follows. We've seen, for example, on issues like the availability of development financing, or the promises by rich countries to contribute towards climate change efforts in the developing world, that there is excellent language in many summits going back 15 years. But none of this has actually been implemented. The sums promised has never come, and action has not resulted. So I would say on this one, it's a welcome initiative, but the proof of the pudding, as the cliche goes, is in the eating.
Well, all right. Let's change the flavor of the segment now. Let's shift our focus. Let's talk about Chandrababu Naidu. Of course, we have the expert on Chandrababu Naidu with us here. TDP's leader, former Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. Now suddenly this tussle, both parties have backed the NDA government. What's really playing out here? We earlier saw that there were a lot of political killings between the YSRCP and the TDP as well. People have been hacked to death. Political turmoil and tussle between these two parties, they have their own history. But something as unprecedented as arresting a former chief minister, on a skill development scam, removing those pictures from social media and from public consumption of the arrest, so as to make sure that Chandrababu Naidu doesn't garner sympathy. Then Chandrababu Naidu's visuals came across when he was on that caravan and he was going there to visit. And that's not all. Pawan Kalyan, Janasena chief, is also in the turmoil, because Janasena chief is going there. He's saying, I wanted to go there. This was a plan. I had planned this trip 4 months back. He lies down on the highway. He is detained later on. What is happening in Andhra Pradesh essentially, Nancy?
Well, I feel like, if you read the whole story,
and we have those visuals as well. Before, we move on, I'm going to ask the control room to play out those, dramatic shots, because you can see that there's a human chain and Chandrababu Naidu is walking right in the center of that human chain. And whilst he's been shifted, take a look at that visual and you'll just see the man walk. Abhi shakal dekhiye, that's the man right there. He's been shifted to a different jail now.
And I think it takes a lot of efforts, it takes a lot of planning to, to see the ex-chief minister of Andhra Pradesh like this, being taken up to custody. So it's a 14-day judicial custody.
He's been sent to Rajamundry jail.
Yeah, and the way this whole thing turned out, it happened so fast. In the 6 a.m. in the morning, the CID is there to arrest him. The police is there, and if you hear the bite where his first reaction after the arrest, he's like, I'm not understanding what is happening. I don't know how
What
am I.
what do you mean him? People around him couldn't understand.
understand.
We were trying to understand him, break the news.
Yeah, this happened overnight, and suddenly nobody has any idea what is happening right now. Then we have Pawan Kalyan in the picture as well. So this political turmoil is turning out to be something, and nobody is able to question Jagan Mohan Reddy as well. That because people don't even have facts. People are like, what if Chandrababu Naidu does have something to do with that AP development?
And these
case?
are all allegations in the first place. No, in any case, take a look at what the newspapers are saying. It says Andhra Pradesh Skill Development Funds case. Day after arrest, Chandrababu sent to 14-day judicial custody. Former Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister and Telugu Desam Party President N. Chandrababu Naidu was sent to 14-day custody by Special Anti-Corruption Bureau. Naidu, who was arrested by the Andhra Pradesh CID at dawn on Saturday for his alleged involvement in the AP Skill Development Corruption Scam, corporation scam, beg your pardon, was produced before the court for the third additional sessions judge come special judge for ACB cases on Sunday morning. Nearly 6 hours of arguments by lawyers on both sides followed, during which the CID sought 15-day custody of the former Chief Minister, जो कि मेरे ख्याल से अब उनको मिल चुकी है. In its order in the evening, however, the court sent Naidu to judicial custody. While he is in judicial custody, the CID will have to seek the court's permission to question Chandrababu Naidu. What do you think is going to happen next? I mean, of course, TDP party workers are going to, point their fingers on the YSRCP, the YSRCP on the TDP. But what about the people? And what about governance of the people? I mean, this is a current Chief Minister versus the former Chief Minister.
I think we are talking about a former Chief Minister here. So, the moment he was arrested, there was people, who were protesting outside his home, outside, the jail, Vijayawada, ACB court. We can see protests happening all around because people are not understanding what is happening. Now that, he is in judicial custody, now the CID will have to seek permission of the court to question him on the first place. But my point is that, these kind of things happen, allegations are thrown around randomly between political parties who don't go, along with each other. But, getting him arrested, he's in jail already, he's been taken into like some criminal right now, and nothing has been proved yet. So the questioning still has to be done, the witnesses still have to be, the facts are still not there, the CID is at him, we want to question him. But what is going to happen? Are they going to find any link? Because we are talking about, the scam that we are talking about, it mounts up to the amount of 371 crore that we are talking about, and that is government funds, which was supposed to go to the public, and public is right now supporting him because that he's not wrong. We don't know what is happening, and you are alleging him that he did something bad to us or he was trying to fool us. So I think it will be interesting to see how this whole matter unfolds before us.
And let's not forget that Andhra Pradesh does not go to polls, but the other Telugu state, Telangana, does go to polls, and both these elections do somehow end up affecting each other. These are the latest shots when he's been shifted to the Rajamundry jail that you can see. Chandrababu Naidu, sent to 14-day judicial custody, was last night shifted to Rajamundry jail, and visuals of the same on your screens, ladies and gents. All right, let's move on. Let's shift our focus to what's happening in Morocco. Morocco death toll has again risen. It's crossed the 2100 mark. I mean, we began with just 300 deaths and we're now sitting at 2100. I know that, I mean, in comparison with Turkey, this is nothing. Turkey and Syrian earthquakes that we recently saw, this is nothing, but the devastation is unreal. The search and rescue operations are still being carried out. Continuous work on the ground when we're looking at the Moroccan death toll.
And we know when something, when these kind of natural calamities happen, the numbers are always not, they are always less, because once the rescue operation will go, there are going to be thousands of people who are, stuck in debris, and there is no record of it. So, something when tragedy like this happens, it breaks our heart, obviously, and, it raises questions about a lot of things, what the officials are doing, how the government is responding to it. But in the end, it dumps it down to, humanity, that, the loss that Morocco is going through right now is, unimaginable. And I liked how PM Modi also in the G20, 20 G 20 he mentioned that whatever happening is Morocco is disheartening.
Relief and rescue works
yes,
continue
exactly.
on the ground. The devastating Moroccan earthquakes, extensive damage in and around of Marrakesh, and debris piles continue to block roads. Phone and power services are down. Rescue teams search for survivors after the deadly quake, and people are sleeping out in the open. I mean, remember in Turkey when it got cold and it was snowing? These are satellite visuals of the entire region. I mean, if one has to take a closer look to study to understand the kind of devastation that has happened. But Marrakesh, I mean, something that is a UN heritage site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site,
And
damaged completely.
It says here also that it was the strongest to hit Morocco in over 120 years according to the USGS, but it was not the deadliest in the 1960s also. So, and it has already, in 1960 also the earthquake struck the country and it killed 12,000 people at that time as well. So this is not, you can see a whole civilization turned into just rocks and mud in just a fraction of seconds, which is scary, which is, something that shakes me to the core.
And even as survivors are seeking assistance, aid offers have certainly come in. Take a look at what Spain has done. Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez said on Sunday that Spain would send search and rescue teams and aid, having received a formal request for help from Morocco. In France, the Foreign Ministry said it was activating a fund of local government contributions to support actions. Nearly 2 million euros have been pledged. Algeria, which broke off its ties with Morocco 2 years ago, said it would open its airspace for humanitarian and medical flights to Morocco. So it's not that people aren't helping out. People are helping out. People are lending that helping hand as well. But certainly, really troublesome, tough, and tragic times for Morocco and the entire world. 2,100 people, more than that, have lost their lives. An equal amount of number certainly injured, and about 1,500 to 1,600 people critically injured. The World Health Organization and the United Nations office have collectively confirmed that more than 3 lakh people in totality have been affected in the Moroccan tragedy. But even as we shift our focus, coming back home, understand and take a look at what's happened in Thane. Even as we move on from Morocco's quake tragedy, let's take a look at what's happening in Thane, ladies and gentlemen. Right. So, in Thane, about 40 floors up in the sky, there's a lift. It's an elevator that workers use to go up and down. That's the exact building that you're seeing over there. 7 workers have been killed because this lift comes crashing down, Nancy. 40 floors, comes down crashing. 40 floors. A similar instance happened in Noida, in the National Capital Region, where we learned that in a residential society the lift had come down. These are workers. They're building this skyscraper. Take a look at that. That's the elevator shaft where the lift collapsed. Now, why it happens? There are so many arrangements that can be done in a lift. There are so many fail-safe measures that a lift has to have. These NOCs, these no objection certificates, is something that companies and builders and real estate sector does not really pay a lot of heed to, which is what has again led to 7 deaths.
And I think, Kabir, it dumps it down to who is going to be held responsible for this mishap.
Right.
The workers have lost their lives. Now if you go to the buck, there will be it was his responsibility. It was the responsibility of the society who built the architecture. Then the architecture will go to the official government official, the local bodies. Then the local bodies will come to the government. And this train is never going to end. We are going to pass the blame game to everybody. And but when instances like this happen, this is clear case of carelessness. This is clear case of lack of planning, lack of infrastructure stability in Thane. Because why is nobody taking the lift? How can somebody know that whenever you will enter it, if you might not come out alive? This is so disheartening to see, because now there is nobody who is going to take the responsibility of it. How are we going to compensate the life lost in this incident is something that I don't think so anybody can answer right now.
You're absolutely right. You know what, Nancy? People who must be grieving the death of these 7 workers, you never know, the blame might just fall on them as well.
True.
Because everybody's trying to run away from the blame. You're absolutely right when you're pointing out that. And you know, when we're talking about technical failures, when we're talking about technical snags, and a lot of them have started happening in the aviation sector. Take a look at this instance coming from the Chinese airlines, you know, Air China, and their particular engine was, you know, it caught fire. There was proper smoke inside the cabin. The cabin pressure went awry. People had to come out. There were visuals of people running out, and there was that, you know, that slide that protrudes from the side of the aircraft, and people slide down. Take a look at that visual. Now, people are still trying to understand why it essentially happened, but it's interesting to note here that the maker of this engine is the same maker, you know, जिनके engine Indigo flights में अभी recently खराब हुए. Pratt and Whitney engine. This is the particular engine that is in question. It was a Pratt and Whitney engine that went on fire. This is an Air China aircraft. The flight was evacuated on the Singapore runway. This is the CA403 TFU SIN, squawking 7700 shortly before landing at Singapore due to PW, which is the Pratt and Whitney 1100G, the 1100G engine that caught fire. Heavy smoke in the cabin crew, and the crew was evacuated in the plane when it was still on the runway. The aircraft is a 4-year-old A320 Neo B305J. I mean, the model specifications, of course, for viewers from you know, the aviation field who have some sort of you know, affinity towards aircraft, but the Pratt and Whitney engines, that's the essential idea. Pratt and Whitney, these engines certainly not reliable, it seems, Nancy. But even as we show the viewers those visuals, we'll have to circle back to some political developments taking place back at home, which is the Maratha quota stir. There was violence when we're talking about Maratha quota stir. Earlier on, Eknath Shinde had to convene that immediate meeting. All of this up on reservation essentially. Today, there is a fresh call for Bandh in Thane, exactly where that lift incident happened. And in Thane, there is a call for a Bandh, but more importantly, Eknath Shinde, Devendra Fadnavis and Ajit Pawar, they're all going to be holding an all-party meet today on the Maratha quota stir.
I think it's important that, you know, you finally addressed, you know, this Maratha quota row, because it has been going on for so long now. And the government has yet to make a decision, and the political instability goes on in Maharashtra for a very long period of time. Because, you know, sometimes we have Eknath Shinde, now we have seen Ajit Pawar, you know, switching sides. And these type of things, you know, these kind of things, you know, they take you away from the issues at hand, because this Maratha quota, as you were saying, the violence had, you know,
the police lathi charge in Jalna, and we all saw that, we all covered that news, and in Jalna as well, people are still angry about why the police lathi charge in fact happened.
And there is no answer to that yet. There is no clarification to that yet. So calling an all-party meeting and deciding on what is going to happen right now, because it's high time that they take a decision on this, whether it's going to, you know, they're going to give the quotas or they're not going to give, what is going to be the criteria. I think it's high time now, because the, you know, the collateral damage that is happening because of this row is something that I don't think so is worth it right now. And this is just a political infatuation, because you know, the political parties need to come together and, you know, need to address this issue as soon as possible.
You're absolutely right.
So that, you know, the collateral damage has to stop right now.
You're absolutely right. Maratha quota stir, what's going to happen in that all-party meet? Well, we'll keep our ears and eyes on the ground, because what happened in Jalna, people are still not happy with what's been done in terms of reconciliation. A lot of people got injured, a lot of policemen got injured, and Eknath Shinde has its task cut out for him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know, it seems like we've covered a fair share of political stories and international developments. Rubiales, who's the Spanish Football Association's head, who ended up in that kissing scandal when he went and kissed that Spanish footballer after they won the World Cup. The women's team won the World Cup. He has stepped down after the entire World Cup victory was tarnished. There were protests across the world, across the globe. In that kissing scandal, Spain's soccer chief, he's going to step down from his post of the soccer, chief's position, the president of the Spanish Soccer, Federation Association. I'm not getting that right now. But one thing is for sure, that it is the right step, and the tarnishing that happened of the World Cup victory, maybe they can do another a victory lap and celebrate that victory once again, because this is in fact another victory, not just of Spanish women all across the world.
True, and I think it was very important. It was high time that it was the right decision for him as well, because it discouraged women in sports a lot, because something like this happened. And I think when the video went viral, in the first place everybody was blaming the girl, that why did not she spoke at that time. So I think it's finally a victory. It's definitely a victory for the Women's Federation, women in sports overall. So.
Absolutely. So that match did not happen between India and Pakistan yesterday. That's going to be played out, continued today. On the other hand, Novak Djokovic, he's bagged his 24th Grand Slam. I mean, what else can this man not do? Won the US Open, beat Medvedev. For all the other news and updates, keep watching News 9 Live. We're going to continue to bring you the best of G20 all across the day. This is Nancy Bora and Kabir Naqvi signing off. Keep watching News 9 Live.
Pretty power-packed thing, I suppose the sort of Mohammed bin Salman, Mohammed bin Zayed, President of the United States of America, look at these pictures. I mean to say, the visual says it all.